Okay, the Bible is filled with unlikely heroes for the simple reason that Yahweh chooses to use those who grasp his strength by faith and bring glory to him, not themselves. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 26 to 31. The book of Judges has a well, let me get that. For the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 26. For ye see your calling, brethren, how that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. But Yahweh hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and Yahweh hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty, and base things of the world and things which are despised hath Yahweh chosen, yea, and things which are not, to bring to naught things that are. Verse 29, that no flesh should glory in his presence. 30, verse 30, but of him are ye in Hamashiach, Yahawashi, who of Yahweh is made unto us wisdom and righteousness and sanctification and redemption. The book of Judges has its share of unlikely heroes, and none is more unlikely than Gideon. Yet Yahweh called him to great exploits of faith. Book of Judges chapter 6, verse 11. Israel was in a deplorable condition in Gideon's day. A 40-year period of peace following Yahweh's deliverance through Deborah and Barak, which was the book of Judges chapter 5, 31, came to an end with the invasion of the Midianites. Israel had again departed from the Lord, and this was his disciplinary judgment. And you read that, or I read it in Judges chapter 6, starting at verse 1. For 7 years, Midian and his allies repeatedly raided the land, leaving the Israelites in almost subhuman conditions. Like I said, they was catching hell, you know what I'm saying? Verses 2 to 6. When the people of Israel cried out to Yahweh, he sent them an unnamed prophet to remind them of the root of their problem, proving that how he always sends out his prophets to let them know when judgment's coming. And you're seeing, that really today, so why people scoff and laugh and don't understand it. If you hear it and scoff, or you hear it and, accept it, either way, the thing is, like, you marked. When the people of Israel cried out to Yahweh, he sent them an unnamed prophet to remind them of the root of their problem. In spite of all Yahweh's good deeds for them, they had spurned him for foreign gods, which you can read in verses 7 to 10. This rebuke was intended to turn their hearts back to Yahweh and give him the moral basis for delivering them. At the same time, the Lord also was preparing the instrument he would use as a deliverer. Gideon from the tribe of Manasseh. This began when there came an angel of the Lord and sat under an oak which was in Ophrah, that retained unto Joash the Abiezrite, which is Judges chapter 6, verse 11. The location of Ophrah is uncertain. That's what the appositor is saying. We know, and I haven't, researched it. Uncertain. We know it was in the tribe of Manasseh territory, for Abiezr was a descendant of Manasseh. And so you can check that out in the book of Joshua 17 and 2 and Judges 6 and 15. Joash may have been prominent in this time. An angel in Judges 6 and 11 is literally the angel. This angel was not a typical heavenly messenger, but appearance of the Lord, which I like to say, I don't know about that. I will have to, just reading from the positive. Yahweh himself in human form, which I doubt. Yahweh doesn't do, I don't agree with that, because Yahweh doesn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, Yahweh is the boss of all bosses. He sits back and he has messengers. And you can read that in multiple accounts in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? That's why, like, when they think that he sent this evil spirit on Saul, and you had angels on the left and the right jumping up talking about what's happening. I'll go do it. You know what I mean? So that's why I said Esau going off on this. Well, I'm assuming Esau wrote this. Apparently, Gideon did not realize this at first, as indicated by his addressing the angel as Adonai, which is Lord in verse 13. However, he eventually recognized the angel's true identity and called him. See, you probably have to go back into Hebrew, because it's saying that he recognized the angel's true identity and called him Yahawah, Yahawah, or Salaki, it say Yahawah, God and Lord in verse 22. The narrator also called him Yahawah, verses 14 and 16. Like I said, I don't know about that. I think they're going off. By the oath, the Lord spoke to Gideon, Joash, son, who was threshing wheat at the bottom of a wine press in order to keep it hidden from the Midianites. Grain was normally threshed in an open area. Oxen or donkeys were used to trample the stalks and pull a sledge to separate the grain from the husk or chaff. When the farmer threw the mixture into the air with a winnowing fork, the grain fell to the ground and the wind blew the shaft away. But the Midianite raids had precluded this practice in the open, so Gideon was threshing in a wine press in a more concealed area. He was beating the grain with a stick in a place totally unsuitable for threshing. The angel's greeting, which you can read in Judges 6 and 12. The divine angel addressed Gideon in a most unusual way. The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. Salakia. The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. This soldier or a person of prominence and wealth in the community. You know what I'm saying? You can read Joshua 10 and 7 or Ruth 2 and 1. Gideon did come from a prominent family. He had 10 servants, which you can read in the book of Judges 6 and 27, but it is more likely the Lord was speaking in anticipation of his military leadership. In view of Gideon's present situation, this greeting seems like mockery. If he was a man of valor, where was his courage? Why was he hiding from the Midianites? But it was not mockery. Yahweh was preparing him for a great work, and he wanted him to glimpse what Yahweh's presence could do for him. The Lord knew what kind of man Gideon was, weak and fearful, but he also saw that he also saw what he would be where his faith was strengthened. When his faith was strengthened. This should encourage us as well. And which is true, because when you take the time to think about it, like that's the spirit though, because at the end of the day, when you read that, you know, Gideon came up with a lot of excuses, and then when you take the time to read the account, Gideon also, you know, like that's where you get, you know, I always thought that's where you got that 300 from when I really start, you know, getting into the truth. You know what I'm saying? Now, I know, you know, the Spartans were really the Lacedaemonians, but when you, I mean, you know, the movie 300, and then it was 300 men, Gideon, you know what I mean? Like, you'd be surprised how much they base movies and stuff off of scripture, you know what I mean? An answer to doubts. That's um, 16, 13, verse 13 and 14. And Gideon said unto him, O my Lord, if the Lord be with us, why then is all this befallen us? And where be all his miracles, which our fathers told us of, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord hath forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. Verse 14. And the Lord looked upon him and said, go in this thy might, and thou shalt save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have not I sent thee? So he basically saying, if I'm helping you to do it, or I'm sending you and I'm with you, why can't it be, you know what I mean? Like, why can't it be done? Gideon's question. Gideon's response reveals that he's not only Salakia. Gideon's response reveals that he not only did not recognize who the messenger was, like I said, I don't agree with that, but also missed the singular thee, which is you, in his promise. Gideon assumed the angel was speaking of the Lord's presence with all Israel. If the Lord was really with them, he wanted to know why had all the misery happened to them. He apparently had not heard the explanation already given by the prophet. Gideon was a thinker, and he had already pondered the theological problems implied by Israel's plight. He knew his nation's history and asked what had come of all the Lord's miracles their fathers had told them about. The Lord had delivered them in Egypt, in the desert, and in Canaan, but that was all in the past. Where was Yahweh now? Gideon did not question his power, he questioned his presence. Yahweh was strong and Israel was weak. To Gideon, that meant the Lord had forsaken them. Gideon was perplexed and perhaps a little cynical at this discrepancy. He reasoned that if Israel was the Lord's people, he ought to continue to bless them, but he was only partially correct. It was true the Lord had delivered Israel over to Midian, but he had not abandoned them. They had abandoned him. In fact, Yahweh's in fact, Yahweh's disciplinary judgment proved that he still cared for them. And I'm gonna stop right there, and pick up next week. Um, I hope this was somewhat edifying to any of the Akim. You know, I don't know why the Spirit moved me. I got this book when I was going through a little trial, and I always wanted to read out of it. I ain't getting the opportunity to really catch what's going on in the world because I'm kind of busy. But at the end of the day, I hope it was edifying. I want to once again give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Yashem, Yahweh Shah, Waha, Kadash, Rakah, Barakatah. Double honors to the apostles and elders, the great millstone that brought us this truth. Peace and salutations to the Akim around the four corners of the earth, pushing the truth with faith and sincerity. Shalom.